Okay, good evening, everybody. It is now 7 p.m. It is Monday, August the 13th, 2018. This is the Owen Sound City Council. Before I go any further steps, I want to thank Deputy Mayor Wright for sitting in and covering for me, chairing the meeting, the last one. We met as a council starting with a closed session at 6:15 tonight. We had a closed session, I already said that. Council reviewed the minutes of the closed session meeting held on July 23rd, 2018. Council reviewed one matter regarding a proposed or pending disposition of land by the municipality or local board respecting industrial park lands on 23rd Street East and provided further direction to staff. And council reviewed one matter regarding a proposed or pending disposition of land by the municipality or local board respecting the courthouse and jail property and provided further direction to staff. Down to number 4 on the agenda, council staff first. Any additional business? Go ahead.
Your Worship, just a note about movie night that starts this Thursday.
Thank you. Anyone else? Staff? No? Okay. Councillor Kepke?
Just something about Harbour Nights.
Okay, thanks. Anybody? Brian?
I want to congratulate 3 sports teams in Owen Sound.
Either of you guys? No? Going this way. Councillor Dodd?
Thank you, Worship. Just like to give an update on the latest skate jam.
Thank you. No? Okay, and then I'll have some matters as well. Just add those to it. Down to number 5, any additional, disclosure of pecuniary interest, the general nature thereof, anyone? You'd almost think I missed a meeting, and I'm out of sync. Seeing none. Confirmation of council minutes.
Moved by myself, Councillor Gregg, seconded by Councillor O'Leary, that the minutes of the regular council meeting held on July 23rd, 2018, as printed, be adopted.
All in favor? Those are carried. Thank you. Minutes of closed session.
Moved by myself, Councillor Gregg, seconded by Councillor Kepke, that the minutes from the closed session of council meeting held on July 23rd, 2018, as printed, be adopted.
And all in favor? That's carried. Now down to number 7, motion to move council into committee of the whole.
Moved by myself, Councillor Gregg, seconded by Councillor O'Leary, that City Council now move into committee of the whole to consider public meetings, deputations and presentations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports of city staff, consent agenda, committee minutes, matters postponed, motions for which notice was previously given, and additional business.
And all in favor? And that is carried. So we're now in committee of the whole. At number 8, we have no public meetings. At number 9, we have a deputation and a presentation from Kristen Schreider, our manager of property. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for making time for me on the agenda tonight to update council and the public about the City Hall renovation project.
So, Kristen, I'll get you to move just a little bit more in front of that microphone. There you go.
I'll just wait. Do you want me to try and move it here?
There we go.
Thanks, Sean. Thank you. So yes, thank you for allowing me some time tonight to update you on the City Hall renovation project. So I just thought I'd start the evening off by just reminding everybody of why we did the renovation to begin with. So the City Hall Accommodations Ad Hoc Committee, it formed in June of 2015. Their role was to assess the 2012 and 2014 condition assessment of the existing facility. They also toured the existing facility, looked at the condition of it, and also considered the alternatives that were before them to purchase land outside of the downtown core and build new, or to renovate the existing structure. The most favorable option decided at that time was to renovate the existing structure in the downtown. So we had failing HVAC system, which is heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. We had a Ministry of Labor inspection come through and an actual order for us to not turn on the heating and cooling system. It contributed towards poor air quality. We had a lot of mold and asbestos throughout the building. The system itself, the mechanical system, it was not functioning properly. The equipment was past its life expectancy. We were not providing an adequate environment for comfort for staff, and it was getting quite costly to maintain and repair the equipment. So our AODA, which is Accessibility for Ontarios with Disabilities Acts, our compliance targets with the renovation were to provide a new compliant and fully functional elevator, motion controls throughout the building, accessible entrances, interior and exterior accessible layout, fully accessible washrooms for both staff and public, accessible customer service areas, our audio system within the council chambers to be accessible, and our life-saving systems. Our energy efficient targets included building envelope, insulation, lighting and controls, the introduction of natural light throughout the building, building automation system, efficient equipment, and operational efficiencies as well with staff. So we wanted to look at, as I mentioned before, about keeping the services in the heart of the downtown. With that then, and I'll get into excavating the crawl space, but we needed to add some square footage in order to accommodate our records management system and also our central filing, which the City of Owen Sound has never had before. We relocated the engineering services from Public Works Building to City Hall. They're with us right now at the Professional Center, and they'll be relocating back to City Hall with us. That creates a one-stop shopping then for our planning, developing, building and engineering services department. And we wanted to also make sure that not only did we meet the needs today, but we are actually planning for tomorrow as well. So the approved budget, we are at just under $8.7 million for the renovation project. It's broken into subcategories as well. That budget was amended in early 2018. We had an operating surplus of $85,000 from the 2017 operating surplus, and at that time ad hoc and council approved to add that to our contingency budget, which then amended our final budget to just over $8.7 million. Our current budget, and I apologize for the size of that, I'm not sure if you can see that on your screen there, but I'll read it out. It's from my working document. So our overall total budget, we are 80% spent to date. Our construction, which is the payment for the general contractor, we're at 90% spent. Our contingency, we are at 80% spent. Our consulting, we're at 101% spent. So with that overage for consulting, testing, and disbursements, then the contingency will support any overages in that budget. Our furniture is at 29% spent, and that would be our deposit for the furniture that we've ordered. And our relocation budget is currently at 96%. Keep in mind that the first 3 months of our extension of the lease at the Professional Center has been committed to be paid by the general contractor, but the city has continued to pay that lease. At the end, after the project is done, it'll be one of those things that are worked out when money is exchanged. So again, just overall, we're at 80% spent on the entire budget. So the schedule, May 16th, 2016, our architect, Congat's architect, Alar, came up and did a presentation for staff and council. At that time, the substantial completion date was listed at July the 30th. We applied for a grant in June of 2016, and at that time, to be eligible for funding, we had to have substantial completion of the portion of the building that we were applying for funding for to be complete by March 30th. So at that time, we reached out to the architect and the general contractor and asked if March 30th would be an achievable date to list as substantially completed, and at that time they had they agreed to that, so it was adjusted at that time. And then the remainder of that schedule there shows each date that we had adjusted the schedule. The last adjustment just occurred on July 17th. Motion to our ad hoc committee to adjust the substantial completion date to August 31st, which is what it's listed at right now, which then bumped our lease at the professional center by 1 month, which is now September 30th as well. My last line on there, August 3rd, an email to ad hoc committee. I had identified, and I'll describe in more detail, a few critical items that will perhaps postpone or could affect our substantial completion date. So there's a few critical items, doors and stone ceiling, that we're unsure of those delivery dates, and that then could affect our August 31st deadline. So some items that have impacted our schedule, the discovery of mold and asbestos throughout the building. We did know there was mold and asbestos when we did the tender, and that removal and abatement was included in the specifications in the original contract, but once you get into renovating and demolition, you do find a little bit more, and we found quite a bit more. So conditions relating to the elevated water table, which we're all aware of how high our water table is around that area, existing site and soil conditions, and also lead time on critical items. So I've just included a few pictures for you guys to see some of the improvements that we've made. So when we look at improving the facility itself, but we look at building envelope improvements. And so what that means is to make sure we want everything to be nice and pretty and shiny and new on the inside, but if we don't protect it from the outside, then eventually that's going to catch up with us, and we'd be back in the same position as what we were. So the top picture there is actually of the north side of the building, Percy England Parquet, and there was an old flower garden that sat there, and so you can see the probably bottom 10, 12, 14 rows of brick there that are deteriorated, but also when you look at the foundation, there's no proper or adequate protection for that. We had water penetration throughout our foundation in the building. The lower picture there shows the proper way that our company did. They came in, they cleaned the foundation, they inspected the foundation, which I have to say we got lucky on, because our foundation was in excellent shape considering the conditions. A membrane is applied, so the blue skin that you see, and a dimple board, and then proper perimeter drainage to take away the water, so then we won't run into that same problem. So kind of the same pictures here. So this is at our front entrance on the east side of the building. This is the lowest foundation that we had to excavate to, and they did that same method of foundation protection as well, and waterproofing. And then one final picture just to show that is the light well that runs along the east side as well. So you can see on the before picture actually that they had like a tar-like material, which is great, but not quite acceptable to today's standards. So we made sure that, that they were done properly through this renovation. So when we talk about building envelope, we also talk about doors and windows. So there's some old photos of what we had before. Single pane windows, some of them were operable. If they were operable, they weren't in great working condition as well with our windows and doors. So the top picture there in the right, or the left-hand corner, that shows pretty much the building where it was absolutely gutted and just left as a skeleton, so the windows were removed. The other top picture then to the right is actually the hoarding that would have taken place. They would have started introducing heat into the building during the construction phase, but they used a clear tarp so that they could get some natural light in. And then the lower picture is actually when the new windows are installed. So you can see much more efficient thermal window, operable, and very, very efficient. So we also looked at the introduction of natural light. So this is the east side of the building, and you can see the top left-hand picture there where the Owen Sound City Hall letters are. The next picture to the right then shows actually where we removed some of the precast panels and we actually added a cantilever beam, because that will be the new addition for an upstairs meeting room and also the entranceway from the east side. And then you can see where we added space or a cavity for 2 new windows, which you can see in the lower hand picture there. So masonry repairs. I've probably learned more about brick and masonry than what I ever thought imaginable in the last year, I'll have to say. It's quite an art and a specialty for historical restoration. You can imagine how difficult it is to blend 50 or 60-year-old brick and masonry and mortar into brand new brick. So here you can see just kind of a mock-up, and this was the mock-up that was approved for us to go ahead with the process. And I'm sure that you can all remember there was a month or so where you walked around and City Hall looked a little bit like a checkerboard. So we weren't sure exactly what to think of that process. It's the first time that I've personally been through it, and our architect as well to this degree. So we weren't too sure how it was going to turn out. We were a little bit concerned. The restoration specialist said, this is what we do every day, trust us, and leave it with us. So you can see this is that same picture of Percy England Parquet, where all those bricks had to be replaced because they were damaged. And so we had those replaced, and you can see the brick and mortar, and you can see that difference. And the tinting process that these fellows went through, you can see they did it all by hand. They prepared the brick at their site. They applied the fleck or the speckle to it at the site, and then they also had tinting to do on site here that had to be done by hand. It was absolutely amazing. So I'll just show you this picture here. So this is the east side entranceway. We had to remove a couple of courses of brick just underneath that new addition. And then you can see the lower hand picture where the mortar looks really, really white and the brick looks quite a bit lighter as well. And they went through the tinting process. They cover it in the film. They let it cure for, I can't remember if it was 2 days or 3 days. And then they take that film off, the protective plastic, and you can see in the lower hand picture just how it turned out, and it turned out amazing. So we were very, very pleased with the restoration of the brickwork throughout. So part of the masonry as well is the precast repairs. A lot of the panels had some deterioration and some rusting that was coming through as well. And of course, on that building, all of the caulking contained asbestos as well. So we had that abated. On the west side there, we had the where the old public washrooms was, and that was the hydro transformer location down below. So that was removed, and sometimes when you get into, again, that demolition, you uncover things that that are not in good working shape as well. So we had some structural and precast repairs that needed to be done. So you can see the condition of the exposed beam once we took the concrete out of there, and then you can see the structural repairs that required, which take a little bit of time and a little bit of money. And then that photo at the bottom was actually taken last week where they were applying the new precast panels, and they turned out very well. Insulation is another big thing when you look at building envelope as well. I was absolutely surprised at the lack of insulation that we had at former City Hall. The top picture there is of council chambers, so we had the nice interior brick walls, but none of those were insulated, so we did lose a couple of inches for overall square footage wise in that room, but they had to be properly insulated as well. So, and that's just a typical office then on the level 1 or level 2, I'm not too sure. And then the bottom picture I just wanted to point out as well. So even when we're looking at installing new windows and fixing the masonry on the outside, but tying all that in together, one of the most important aspects of it is vapor barrier and insulation as well. So we had our building department go through, they approved all of the insulation. If they felt a little bit uneasy or thought that maybe we were a little bit short in some areas, they were quick to point it out, and we brought the insulators right back in, and they finished the job. So we'll be pleased with that for sure. I talked a little bit about our HVAC improvements and efficiencies. So these are a few pictures that show our previous equipment. The top left-hand corner is some pipe that we had infrastructure throughout the building. The corners had a lot of asbestos. The pipe wrap itself were moldy. You can see a lot of the rust in throughout. In the lower left-hand corner is one of the fan coil units, so they were throughout the offices in City Hall, and that's what we were ordered by MOL to not turn on. So they controlled our AC and our heating. That's a picture of the boiler room downstairs, so the boiler in the back, a compressor. That was probably one of the nicest pictures that I could find of our old system. So this is what our new mechanical room looks like now. So unfortunately, it's not a great picture, but we have fan coil units that are actually up above the ceiling. We have access to filters on all the units, so we will put them on a filter changing program quarterly or as per what the manufacturer suggests. Inside our mechanical room there as well, so you can see we have a limited amount of in-floor heating, our new hot water tank, those types of things, and new boilers as well. The room it's one of my favorite rooms in that building. And then we go up on the roof. We have a new roof hatch that's with a new ladder, so staff can access it properly. We have our new HVAC units that are also mounted, so our rooftop units, and we have a new generator, natural gas generator on top of the roof as well. LED lighting was definitely an energy efficient implementation that we wanted to do. So the left-hand corner there with the very nice pink furniture, that is the lighting level of over in corporate services prior to us leaving, and the other two pictures there just show that is where the stone ceiling will be installed and the pot light infrastructure, and then you can see the new LED strip lighting on the picture below. So we tied into the stormwater management as well. So the bottom picture there, what that shows is we have roof drains, and the roof drains actually come back into the building and then tie into our stormwater management. So we separated that from our sanitary. And along with that, because we do have the high water table and some issues. So this is the area in the west entrance of the building, and this is where we had to install the footing and the foundation for the elevator shaft itself. And if you can imagine, that had to go probably about 5 or 6 feet below elevation, below ground floor, and the water table just kept rising. We couldn't keep up with it. So we did, temporary sump pumps and whatnot. But you can see here down at the bottom picture that that's actually when the foundation was poured, and there's perimeter drainage just around the elevator foundation itself that feed into a dual storm sewer pump system, and also a membrane that wraps around that will not allow water to penetrate the foundation. So this is our new kind of pump room, if you can call it that. So a dual pump system, and it's also hooked on to an alarm and monitoring. So if anything goes wrong with that, then it will call out to our staff, and then we'll have a contingency plan in place to deal with it. So the relocation of the elevator shaft, as I mentioned, I do think I have a picture of the old elevator, and if anybody had ever used it, it was pretty much a single use. It wasn't very user-friendly at all. You needed a key. You had to press a doorbell in order for somebody to come down and meet you, so it wasn't very inclusive whatsoever. So we had to relocate that elevator shaft, and what that meant then is cutting into a lot of the concrete and structural steel as well throughout the building. And again, having to deal with the high water tables as well. And I just wanted to include this picture in it just to give you a glimpse of how difficult it was for the guys to do this. That top picture there actually shows a vac truck. So what that does is it removes any material or water that you want from a location, and then the truck beside it is actually the truck that pumps the concrete. So what we were doing is we were actually excavating pretty much at the same time as what we were filling with concrete, because there was undermining that was happening and the soil conditions just were not adequate for us to do it in 2 steps. So the site supervisor became quite creative with this, and it ended up working out really well. So you can see the finished product there on the right, and what that is then is just the foundation slab for the elevator shaft, and again it has the membrane and then the perimeter drainage, so we will not run into any issues. And just a few pictures of the shaft construction that goes 5 or 6 feet below ground level and penetrates the roof as well. And there's an old picture of the elevator and a new picture of the elevator. And if you ever want to know how much space an elevator takes up before it's installed, it's about half of corporate services area on level 1. So we talked a little bit about the discovery of unknown conditions as well. So some structural steels and beam. The lower picture is actually of the west entrance where the foundation slab was to be installed for our new vestibule entrance as well. There was old rubble from the previous City Hall, so those site conditions, they had to be prepared in order to accommodate our addition. And then the other picture just to the right is actually an interior wall in council chambers. So it's like a clay tile or a terracotta, and that wall was actually on a lean. So it obviously, that was a site condition that we didn't know prior to specification, and one of the things that we had to fix up. And the A word, asbestos, throughout the building. It seemed like everywhere we dug, especially in the crawl space, there was transit pipe, which is asbestos. The other top right-hand corner is actually where it was either carpet or a tile floor. So the mastic or the adhesive that's underneath there, that contains asbestos as well. And then you can just see some of the cleanup efforts there in the yellow bags. And footing and foundation discrepancies that we found throughout, especially in the crawl space, we found a lot of old remnants of old City Hall from when it burnt down. And you can also see then in the second picture is those are strip footings and that run in between the columns, and they were actually at a lower or a higher elevation than what was anticipated and what was on the original drawing. So we had to actually revise the entire crawl space layout, which again cost a little bit of money and cost us a little bit of time, but we ended up with making some good revisions there. Structural repairs, so again in our crawl space, the foundation was not in acceptable condition, so we had to add what was called like a bench footing around the east end of the perimeter of the crawl space. And you can see kind of the before and after, and then the after picture down below. That picture was taken about a week or two ago, and it's ready to accommodate our new file system, which started being installed today as well. So quite a transformation for the crawl space. Proper floor preparation, so mirroring, again, old to new. Those pictures kind of show where the two new additions are and then where they meet in the middle, which was an existing concrete floor as well. And the crawl space that we talked about. So we gained just over 4,000 square feet, and it was there. We didn't have to add anything on. The space was already there. So if you recall, in the basement boardroom down at City Hall, there was that little access door that was pretty tight to get into, but we managed. You can see the height of there. There's my model, Sean, standing up on the soil condition, so it was just over 6 feet tall was the clearance. So they punched a hole through the west side of the foundation and excavated the basement, and you can see all of the debris and soil, and essentially we gained 4,000 square feet, which was great. So here they're just getting that area ready for insulation and concrete, and a lot of the interior walls are blocked down there. And now we have a new central and filing location, our printing hub, and it will house our vault as well. Our electrical and our mechanical is all on that east side of the crawl space. So I just thought it would be, I'll just finish off with just a few before and after pictures, just for some of you that haven't been through City Hall for a while or maybe forgot what some of the previous pictures looked like. So our vault and file storage, just some before and afters. Our basement hallway, if you can recall the quite narrow and dark hallway, and now that's pretty much taken from the same vantage point. Keep in mind that these pictures that I have that are now, we're not quite there. A lot of the finishing touches that we're just waiting for is our carpet and our ceiling, so we're almost there. This is the broadcast room and the council kitchenette in behind council chambers, and now you can see we have new millwork, and we actually have reversed. So we have council kitchenette, and then the Rogers broadcast room is on the other side. Our basement boardroom, you can see with the introduction of a few new windows and bright lights, you won't even feel like you're in a basement in there. So our 205 meeting room, that's what that looked like prior to the renovation. And what I did, because those rooms aren't quite done yet, we don't have the glass on. The stone floor is installed, but it's covered up right now to protect it, and we're just waiting for the ceilings to be installed as well. So these are just a few views that we'll see, even though it is still a construction site, but these are a couple of the views from the west, so to see the river precinct and also the market square. And then on the east side, you can see the downtown core, and then looking south, that was one that was taken kind of in the later winter. Yeah, looks really nice. This was our previous lunchroom that we had. It was very dark and dingy, and now everything is nice and bright and white. And we have appliances and furniture coming for that as well, tables and chairs. So our community services side, what it looked like before, and we just had the millwork and the service counter actually installed 2 weeks ago as well. Our corporate services, that was the entranceway into SOS. Not really inviting, if you look at it. It was pretty dark and definitely not accessible at all. And now this is the more open, again, the finish is not done, but a more open, and it's an accessible countertop where staff will actually sit at as well. The council chambers, which we've talked about quickly already. And the restoration of the lantern was something that was discussed. It was not decided to proceed with it, so when we did perform the demolition on council chambers, there was actually no insulation that was done prior up in that lantern, so everything was taken down, insulated properly, studded and drywalled, and that room is now completely drywalled, ready for mud and tape. So director's office, with 2 windows, a lot of nice natural light. Former city manager's office and what his office will look like now. And one of my favorites is the mayor's office with the wood paneling and pink carpet, and that's what the mayor's office will look like, minus the finished floor and ceiling. So critical items like I talked about, the stone floor ceiling, we're supposed to have the stone floor is to be delivered to site on August the 20th. It should take about 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks to install. So we're working on that supplier. He's a local supplier, so we're working on trying to speed that up a little bit and even increasing the workforce so that we can make up a little bit of time with that. The doors for occupancy, so there's certain doors that we require for occupancy. We've identified those doors. We're working with our manufacturer to see if they can ship those doors separately. If not, or a combination of both, that we can put temporary doors in place so that we can gain occupancy as well. And then we're continuously working on trades coordination and communication as well. And I've pretty much given an update throughout this. The last slide that I just want to end on is when we look at project management, and especially a project to this size, there's 3 pillars or 3 critical points that we look at, and it's budget, it's quality, and it's schedule. And generally one of those gets compromised throughout the project. So right now, we're on budget, which is great. The quality of work, when you walk around the site and you see the finishes, we have not compromised on the quality at all. The person that sits in this chair in 20 years or 30 years from now will go, they did an excellent job of what they picked out and how they did that project. The one thing that we have had to compromise on is schedule. So we are behind, but I'm happy to say that that's the one thing that we can compromise on, and our budget is on and our quality is good still. So
Good, thank you.
thank you.
Questions? Councillor Kepke.
Thank you, Kristen. That was a great presentation and explained a lot of things. One thing I hear, though, from the public is the doors. You're saying the doors are causing us a bit of a delay. People are saying, well, you must have known you needed doors. Why are the doors not the right doors?
Right. So we're in contract with the general contractor, and then the general contractor has separate contracts with his subs, and they're manufacturers and suppliers of certain elements. So across the construction field right now, across the construction industry, there is a delay on certain items, and doors right now happens to be one of them. We hear from school boards as well that they have very, very strict timelines. If they don't get in on time, the displacement of 2,000 kids or 1,800 kids, so sometimes those projects maybe would get bumped up ahead of perhaps what our project would. When they were ordered, the lead time was within our schedule and where it was, and then throughout the course of our project, unfortunately, that delay has happened, and it's caused delays up to 3-4 months on other projects as well. So what we're doing right now is we're working with them to identify those doors that we need in order for occupancy. So hopefully that we will be able to get those doors, and if we can't get those ones, then let's get some temporary doors in place so that we can gain occupancy.
Thank you for that. Hopefully that explains to some of the public that are asking those questions.
Sure.
And thank you for all that you've done in this project. I know you've given it everything you've got,
Thanks.
so thanks.
Thank you. Others? Go ahead. Well, go ahead.
Thanks, Kristen. Quite enjoyed that. Couple quick questions. I guess I have in my notes here, from March, we were at 55% completion plus the March draw, and now we're at 80. So given 4 or 5 months to get up 25% in the completion date, what is being done to give us more certainty that we're going to see that 10% done in a month or
Right.
20% done in a month to get to full completion? Like, it's still a big leap from what we've been chugging along at.
Right, and we have seen that, and actually throughout each of the billing process. So the way that the billing process works is that each month they will issue a certificate of payment. Our consultants, including our architect, structural, mechanical, electrical, they all come on site and they review what's being claimed by the contractor. There's a little bit of negotiation that happens through there as well, but we have issued payment for progress and materials that are on site. We have not provided anything more than what they deserve. So with the payment being 80%, then that's the completion rate of what we have on site complete, but also perhaps what's on site material-wise as well. So for example, the flooring isn't installed yet, but the carpet tiles, they've been on site for probably about 3 weeks. So we would have paid a certain portion for that component of the project because the material is on site, but just not installed yet. So the labor would come later. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. And a smaller comment from the July meeting, I've got a quite wholesome budget. And I'd note on here, there's a column which summarizes change order totals in terms of dollar amounts. Then we've got the contractor markup on those change orders. And then a total contract change, so an additive to or a cumulative total of those.
Correct.
Then we've got our KA, or our architectural contract increase of 8%. But the way this looks like, and it's not a lot of dollars, but the architect is getting a contract increase on the contractor markup as well, and not just the change order increase, which to me, I feel like he should be getting the markup, but it shouldn't be on the change order and the contractor
On top of the markup.
increase. Yeah.
So we have a contract with the architect, and it clearly defines what his markup is, and it's the total value of the contract change, which is 8% or 8.2% then on top of the total contract change. And that was the wording within that contract. So we would have to come good for that.
Thank you.
Okay,
So we approve that contract.
correct, yeah. As a
Councillor
bylaw.
Lemon? Oh, were you done?
Yeah.
Yep, okay, good.
Yeah, just a further question on the doors and windows problem. Could this not have been foreseen that we're going to be running late earlier and a push gone through then, so we're not facing it now?
Sorry, can you repeat the question again? Sorry.
Well,
Peter?
the delay in the doors.
Yep,
The contractor knew about them. Did he diligently make sure that the order was in and going to be filled in time?
so to my knowledge, the communication has been very positive throughout the project with regards to what the lead times are for critical items. When the doors were ordered, they fit within our schedule and our completion date, but through that process of the project and the duration of the project, then on the supply and demand end on things at the manufacturer's side of things, that supply time then has increased greatly. And so we're not the only ones feeling the effects of that as well. But that time then did increase for the delivery of the doors. So at the time that they were ordered, no, we did not feel this impact on the schedule at this time.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Anyone else? Councillor McManaman?
Thank you, Your Worship. One common question we get, Kristen, is why didn't we just tear it down and rebuild it on the same site? Do you recall what the cost was for tearing this building down and rebuilding on site?
I wasn't here at that time, and I'm going to look towards Pam and Wayne, and I'm not too sure if I should, if I even know a number to estimate. I'm sorry.
Through you, your worship, if you look at the frequently asked questions, and we can pull those up, but I recall that the premium was 2.5 to 3 million additional for the construction part of the budget only. So that it would have been significantly more money to just tear it down and rebuild on that site.
That's my recollection as well, and I thought it was actually more than that. I think it was, this is around 8.5 million. A new build was in the neighborhood of 12. So one of the common questions is, why didn't we do that? That's why we didn't do that. Thank you for your presentation. Anybody watching at home, you could see we've got a conscientious, hardworking person in charge of this project. It's important to step back, and you've done that very well here. So why did we do this in the first place? For many, many years, and I'm not throwing stones here because I was on the councils that did it too, it's not popular to spend money on a municipal building. Just put a Band-Aid on it, fix the ceiling tile, don't worry about the leak, and move on. That only works for so long, just like it does at your house. And if we step back, this was a 1965 building. The windows were single pane, moisture, mold, asbestos in the basement, no insulation at all. Again, the windows, 1965. The roof leaked. There was no air conditioning. The heating system was condemned by the Ministry of Labor. The air conditioning didn't work. The electrical transformer was essentially condemned by Hydro. It was not accessible at all. The building, the elevator, none of it was accessible. So we wanted to keep it in the downtown core and keep those, keep that in the downtown core. I think that was an important principle. So again, just to step back, no, it's not popular to spend this money on a public building, on a city building, but I think we're confident that we're going to have a building that's going to last for a very long time now. We've had to, for people out there who are frustrated, why is this taking so long? Believe us, we're frustrated too. But as Kristen has just gone through, the budget it's on budget, and the quality is there. Timing has not been what we've wanted. We all acknowledge that. But at the end of the day, when you look at that list I just went through, they had to be corrected. They are being corrected. We're going to have a building we can all be proud of moving forward. So anyway, there's my speech, Your Worship. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Coulter, you referred to frequently asked questions. Where the heck do we find those?
Through your worship, on the city's website, so www.owensound.ca. If you search current projects, City Hall should be the first project that comes up in that list.
Under current projects, so lots of information there then. And pictures? I can't remember. I think there's some pictures. Good. Kristen, thank you very much. I'm like my fellow councillors are confident that we would be in really bad shape if you weren't in control, and all the work that you've done with the contractor, nipping at his heels, reporting back to us, being over there, I don't know how many hours a week, checking on things, making sure they're done right, making sure that things are done on time as much as we can, following through with some of the sub-trades to make sure that they're being followed up with on time, et cetera. And we certainly appreciate what you've done to get us to this point and to get us another month, hopefully, through that place. So, thank you. So that's number 9. Number 10 on our agenda is a public question period. If there's anyone that wishes to ask a question, I'll get you to step up to the microphone, push the button so the red light comes on, state your name, and ask your question.
Good evening. My name is Raymond Botten. I'm a resident of Owen Sound. My address, legally, lawfully, is in front of 740 2nd Avenue East. I am homeless. But that's not why I'm here. I have a question because for 86 days, as many know in the public and the council, know that there are a number of homeless each night who lay down with us in very dangerous situations in the evening. The police are aware, the paramedics are aware. And tonight I ask this question because 16 times our bylaw officers have been enforced through corporate services, through the city manager, through others who have said, please deal with this problem that we have about a bunch of people who are trying to raise money and who are homeless to get in this emergency shelter, which, of course, everyone will say it's a Grey County situation. But the question I have is why the bylaw continually says to move your items, your personal items, because they're obstructions. But on Friday of last, they gathered a bunch of us homeless together to say something. Meanwhile, other people were walking by who weren't homeless, who were addressed. And they said to us that any personal item not claimed will be taken away, and any new item will be taken away and not given back. Now, we have on video bylaw taking food, sleeping bag, a blanket of personal items of a person and persons who are homeless. Today, I found out, and I'm almost finished because I don't want to waste council time, truly, okay? I really care for everyone here. Is that, and I thank you for allowing me to draw it out, but I have to share it, is that today, the Y Housing through Grey, they're the service provider for Grey County, and they have two placements for Owen Sound of 93,000 people we have in Grey County. In Bruce County, I think it's 68,000, a total of only 6 places in Grey and Bruce County that we have for someone who's in an emergency situation. So we are in a crisis. But the most important thing that I can say as a spokesman for the homeless tonight, and ask this before council, what are we going to do tomorrow morning when bylaw comes and takes the sleeping bags of those who sleep tonight along with us? That's my question.
Ray, I would suggest that if bylaw is removing your sleeping bags, and they're following the bylaws of the city as they are instructed to do and as the bylaws are set out to do.
Thank you.
If you continue to breach the bylaws, then they will continue to come.
Sorry, I didn't realize you were still talking. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm finished.
No, please, I didn't get that last part.
If you continue to be breaching the bylaw, then they will continue to enforce it.
So, again, this is what I understand, and I had to ask bylaw today just to make sure that I wasn't just missing it, that a homeless person must surrender their personal belongings in order
If they're
to
in
not
breach
be
of the bylaw.
obstruction on the streets. We do not want homeless here. Thank you. No. I want to thank you. I want to thank you all because I'm going to waste your time. I don't want to waste your time because we need some counter. We need somebody to love us, not me, but us. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, it's interesting, no, I'm going to let it go. Number 11, correspondence received for which direction the council is required. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Peter. Thanks.
I wanted to read something for you here. Accountability, transparency, and openness are standards of good government that enhance public trust. They are achieved through the municipality adopting measures ensuring, to the best of its ability, that all activities and services are undertaken utilizing a process that is open and accessible to its stakeholders. In addition, wherever possible, the municipality will engage its stakeholders throughout its decisions-making process, which will be open, visible, and transparent to the public. The letter you're going to be discussing shortly, or not discussing, whichever, that's really what that is about. It's not about parking. And I just wanted to make that clear.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Okay. Oh, you got it. Thank you. So now we're down to 11A, which is the letter from Mr. Reed that was just up there with regard to the Owen Sound DIA downtown improvement area. Go ahead, Councillor Kepke.
I'd like to make a motion to receive the letter, but I would also like to note that the DIA did look at this letter and has addressed a few issues. I will admit that there were better means they could have used at perhaps announcing changes to a meeting date. And it's been suggested to the DIA management that there are better means out there by going through the city's marketing communication staff and also getting advice from them on better ways of better ways of communicating changes or things that are happening in the DIA and public meetings, etc. So hopefully that will be an improvement to the transparency that's a concern.
So you're on the DIA,
Yes, I am.
and so this has been raised at a meeting.
Yes, it was at the last meeting.
Okay, thank you. Just want to follow up maybe with Mr. Rich, and I'm not sure if you're going to know this, or maybe it's Ms. Bloomfield. The DIA, by my recollection, the DIA is formed by a decision of council. Council technically collects the fees for the DIA and passes it to them. But are they a department of the city, and do they follow our procedural bylaws, et cetera? Do either of you know? I'm sandbagging you because I didn't tell you I was going to answer it, so ask it, so.
Through your worship, they are considered a local board, so they would fall under our procedural bylaw unless they have adopted their own, which they have not.
Okay, thank you. So they are to be following the rules of the city. Does that mean that we have authority over that then? Tougher question. Don't answer if you don't know, because again, I didn't warn you, so you weren't prepared.
Sorry, authority over their board?
Yeah, and over their procedures.
We've set the procedural bylaw, so that's what they're to follow, but other than that, I can't
I'm
comment.
sandbagging you, sort of, so I apologize.
I could, Your Worship. I think we certainly try to allow our local boards to operate with as much autonomy as we certainly can allow, if that's fair. Procedurally, absolutely, they should be following our procedural bylaws.
Okay, good, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Gregg.
Thanks, Mayor White. I just want to make a point to thank Mr. Reed for this letter, because he's made some good, valid points here that had to be spoken to, and I can't wait, or I'm eager to see the minutes from, I guess it's the August meeting that this was discussed for the DIA then. That would be true. You've already had the August meeting because the letter was dated July 30th. But again, I just want to say thanks because it's a good letter and it's keeping council on their toes, and that's what the ratepayer should be doing.
Just remember that we don't see the minutes until after they've been approved at the next meeting, so we're often 2 months behind for art gallery and library and everything. Councillor O'Leary, Councillor McManaman, I guess, was next.
Just a question to Councillor Kepke. You had mentioned new procedures and informing people of things. So there's a big meeting, public meeting coming up on Thursday, August 30th at 5:30 at the Bay Shore to discuss future direction of the DIA, I think is a good way of putting it, as well as parking and their budget, some significant changes being suggested. Will those new procedures to inform people, will they be in place to allow people to know about this Thursday, August 30th at 5:30 at the Bay Shore meeting?
Through you, Your Worship, the meeting is an information meeting that will present a few proposals, I think there's 3 different proposals on parking, and from there, it will proceed however the proposals followed. There's no vote at that time, it's just an information session, so.
Thank you. Anybody this way? Seeing none. Councillor Larry, did you want to follow up on anything?
I'm trying real hard to zip it, but I just want to say, before I go thanking Peter Reed on anything, I would do my homework and make sure that there's truth in his letter, and there isn't. That's all I got to say.
Councillor Kepke?
Just further to the minutes, I want you to realize that This particular letter, because it dealt with an identifiable individual, was dealt with at a closed session of the DIA. However, there was discussion at the open meeting of better ways of communicating.
Good, thank you. Down to number 12, reports of city staff. City manager. Okay, sorry, Wayne, it was a motion to receive. All in favor? That is carried. Mr. Ritchie, number 12A.
Thanks, Sean. I should mention, Your Worship, certainly I can't give enough thanks to our staff during our leave from City Hall, the extra hours, the extra work they put in for things just like you're seeing tonight. So trust me, each one of us in our own way are really looking forward to getting home again. So with that, Your Worship, tonight we will present the annual review of the City of Owen Sound 2015 Strategic Plan 2020, making our vision clear. Our vision statement was and still is, Owen Sound, where you want to live. Whoops, I went too quick. Our mission statement is strengthening our community through sound leadership. Supported with public engagement, Council determined that the successful achievement of 15 objectives would help to make Owen Sound where you want to live. To provide some details on how to achieve these objectives, 41 actions were recommended. By no means does Council or staff restrict our activities to only these actions, but the overall objectives of the strategic plan are front and center of our efforts. So this evening we review through a series of slides some of the successful achievements that we accomplished in 2017 on making Owen Sound where you want to live. So 2017 achievements. Our first objective is to retain and grow existing local businesses and business opportunities. When visiting manufacturing plants, Council hear repeatedly from management that the cost of municipal taxes is an important element to their bottom line. In response to that message, Council has decreased the industrial tax rates from 2014 to 2017. Employment is up in the city. In fact, employers are finding it difficult to hire some trades people. To assist in the long term, the city is supported at Georgian College, Grey County Learning Center. Objective number 2 was to develop a coordinated approach to attract new investment and encourage development. We make the development process one-stop shopping for developers. Planning, engineering, and building staff attend meetings from start to finish of every project. Some of the results of that in 2017, Your Worship, were the new Sun Life Financial Building at 1100 16th Avenue East, the commercial redevelopment of the old Sellers Plaza, bringing Urban Planet, West 49, Good Life Fitness, and Giant Tiger to the city, and of course the Chapman House Residential Hospice. Objective number 3 is to leverage our city's assets in order to enhance tourism opportunities. Council has always encouraged new thinking and fresh ideas to set Owen Sound as a place to visit and enjoy. With Council's support, we have provided some new attractions to draw visitors to our city. The world's largest dock in Neenah Harbor during the Winter Festival, or during the Waterfront Festival, certainly, Worship, I think that day I saw more people in the downtown core than I have ever witnessed in my time in the city, which is a long time. If Councillor Lemon were here, he could certainly point out, I think, agree with that fact. We also had the harbor come alive during the Waterfront Festival. This, Your Worship, was a fine example of the city partnering with different community groups to bring entertainment and attractions to our city. We continue to run the very successful and well-attended Home and Cottage Expo, as well as the Harbor Nights. So not everything we do is new. We certainly stick with the things that have worked well, and we will continue to do that. Objective number 4, we were asked to encourage residential and mixed-use development. We continued our development charges moratorium on residential development in 2017. There were 238 building permits issued and 91 new housing units created in 2017. In 2015, Council approved extending the water and wastewater services to the Sydenham Heights development area. The work was completed in 2017. There are now hundreds of lots available for development in this area, and I can tell you, sitting in on the development team, interest is extremely high in that area. With leadership from the board of the Owen Sound Nonprofit Housing Corporation, Adawa Heights came to fruition, and there are some of the foundations starting, and there is the finished product, providing 28 units of new affordable housing, including 10 units with barrier-free features. We've had other private developments like Trevor Heather's 16 new apartment units started in 2017, and I believe some may be occupied. I'm not sure of that. Right. Construction began in 2017 on Barry's Construction's 8 new townhouse units near Zares. Construction also started on Barry's 4th Avenue East between 14th and 15th Street, 14 new apartment units. We also want to attract new and retain existing residents. In 2017, with the help of BC Hughes Consulting, the Are You Most campaign was launched. This internet-driven campaign created a lot of buzz throughout the province. Council was open to taking a chance and trying something new. Are You Most campaign successful applicant Yuri Rosa in the middle moved to the city of Owen Sound with his wife to open their own carpentry business, Bearwood Finish Carpentry. It's my understanding we have another of our visitors will be moving to the city shortly. Here's a picture, Your Worship, of one of our successful applicants for a visit with their host ambassadors out for an evening. You've heard me say many times, Your Worship, I certainly believe in this city, and I think if we get more people to come to experience, even for a visit, even if they don't come, the positive messaging they take back to where they came from can only enhance our opportunity of getting more people to join us in this city. We received input from the Mayor's Growth Forum, and we focused our efforts to promote and use an edgier and more creative approach to marketing Owen Sound. The phrase I took away from that afternoon session, Your Worship, was, "This is not your father's Owen Sound." And I think that's what we're trying to promote and market this city today and for the future. We also want to promote and enhance Owen Sound's built heritage. The facade improvement program is in place and partners with private property owners to maintain their buildings. Here's a before photo of Turney Smoke Shop on 2nd Avenue East. And here is the after photo. Here's a before photo of the Everett Hall building located at 832 2nd Avenue East before. And here is the after photo. Again, I think market improvements, Your Worship. The CP station, with a partner that had a vision, the city was able to turn a municipally owned heritage building that was not in very good condition into a vibrant and attractive commercial enterprise that we now know as Mudtown Station. There is an interior shot, Your Worship. We are hopeful that a developer with the right vision will come forward with an adaptive reuse for the former courthouse building. We continue to work with our real estate agents to look at offers, and we are still very hopeful we will find the right partner. We've been asked to encourage and promote participation in cultural activities and active lifestyles. City taxpayers support a wide range of facilities for residents and visitors to enjoy physical, cultural, and learning opportunities. We maintain and promote an extensive park and trail system. Sports fields and facilities promote youth activities, and there's a myriad of them there, Your Worship. The city is a partner in the Owen Sound North Grey Union Public Library and funds most of the capital building repairs to that facility. As well, we support and promote the Tom Thompson Art Gallery. We also want to support community safety and social inclusion. There is direct support for seniors with provision of the McQuay Tannery Building and the Harrison Park Senior Center, provision of facilities such as the Julie MacArthur Regional Recreation Center, Bayshore Community Center, sports fields and parks allows partners to operate programs for youth and others in those facilities. The Downtown River Precinct Plan will present a venue in the downtown that will, over time, turn the place, or the core, into a place for all. These are some of the conceptual drawings we have from where it has been instituted elsewhere. I'm not going to say for a minute ours will look exactly like this over time, but that's how we will make our downtown core safer and more inclusive in the long run. We also want to address the city's infrastructure deficit. We continue to build the database in the city's asset management plan. The plan does provide assistance in decision-making during the capital budget process. Taxable capital spending has increased, reducing the annual deficit. It has more than doubled in the last probably 5 years, Your Worship. It is challenging for any council to raise taxation for capital spending, but not doing so is only passing the challenge on to others, and certainly Councillor McManaman, I think, was speaking to that when he was talking about our City Hall renovation. And here's a few of the projects that our staff have undertaken. This, apparently, Your Worship, I didn't know it, I had to be told, are 8 staff, 2 crews for beam painting at the Bay Shore. There are the finished beams, and Kristen is still here. That was much needed, Kristen. Yes, absolutely. We have, I would say, renovated, upgraded almost every public washroom in the city, or certainly a lot of them. Pam has taken me around. We have visited quite a few of them, and the change in what was there in 2016 to 2017 is phenomenal. Certainly something I think as we have people come and use our facilities we can be proud of. We've done this very much with our own staff, Kristen? Yes. So certainly a good return there. And as always, again, we're dealing with capital infrastructure. In 2017, most of the work was done on the city's wastewater treatment plant, and there's a lovely picture, air photo of that. People always wonder what these anodes are. There's a typical anode in the left shot, protecting our water mains. And certainly if anyone would like a description of how those work, call Matt Prentice. He'd be glad to tell you. All I can do is show you the picture. And there's the water main installation up on 16th Street West. So the people who live up there wonder what that was dug up for most of the last summer. That's what you got. As well, we put in a retaining wall on the upper north side of the 10th Street Hill. Annually, we put $300,000 into a resurfacing program. That isn't in our capital budget new construction. That is resurfacing only. I can remember at one time that was $100,000. So we've certainly increased that over the years as well, Your Worship. We also want to maximize revenue sources and funding. City staff are constantly applying for grants to help fund projects in the City of Owen Sound. Successful application in 2017 has expedited the 10th Street Bridge Replacement Project. The CWWF grant of nearly $1.6 million allowed council to undertake the Kenny Drain project in 2017. This had been on our wish list for at least a decade. And there you see a before picture of the raging waters that go through the Kenny Drain. And there's the work that has been done. Obviously, they're not raging at the moment, but that is certainly going to be a huge improvement. And as I say, Your Worship, one had been on our list for a decade. We just could not find the funding. Optimize the city's operations while maintaining or improving the quality of life. We undertook service review in 2016. We found approximately $800,000 in savings annually. They have all been incorporated now into the city's budgets. Council invests in city staff maintaining professional designations and attending municipal-focused training seminars and workshops. Council and staff have a willingness to look for new methods to achieve the best results for the ratepayer. We are constantly looking for best practices and trying to bring them home and apply them here, Your Worship, as I know all of you, or some of you, will certainly be doing at AMO next week. We wish to maintain and improve public transit options for residents and visitors. Assisted by public transit infrastructure funds, 19 new bus shelters and 35 concrete pads and connectors were installed in 2017. As well, the terminal roof and HVAC units were upgraded, and some interior renovations were undertaken. We also strive to improve energy conservation and efficiency. An energy management program is in place, and the Bay Shore, one of our larger energy consumers, has been the focus of activities in the past several years. In 2017, new motors were installed in the refrigerator room and light fixtures were replaced. So this, Kristen tells me, is a view of the refrigerator room from the entry door at the north end of the Bay Shore. Got that one right. And this is an electrical panel with head pressure gauges located inside the refrigeration room at the Bay Shore. We also wish to maintain, improve, and promote the use of our local parks and trails. Parks and trails are depreciable assets, and every year's budget has significant reinvestment in the asset base. In 2017, we resurfaced the Harrison Park Mile Drive Trail. We did improvements to the Kelso Beach Amphitheater. There's also the Kiwanis Skate Park Bowl installation. As well, in 2017, we updated the Recreation, Parks, and Facilities Master Plan. The process and public engagement during this provided council and staff a better understanding of the expectations own Sounders have for their parks and recreation facilities. So we're better served, we're certainly better prepared to move into 2018, all the way to 2028 with what own Sounders want to see in their recreation, parks, and facilities. And lastly, Your Worship, we want to ensure the responsible management of natural resources. In 2016, Council reduced the salt usage to provincial norms, and we continued that usage in 2017. And absolutely lastly, Your Worship, the completion of the secondary treatment for the city's sewage is an important step in maintaining the quality of our bay. This presentation has touched on some of the progress made on the objectives of the strategic plan. Council has made progress on many fronts, and we are on the right path. Owen Sound is growing, and there is a spirit of optimism in our community. We must continue to build on what we heard from the public during the strategic plan process and at the Mayor's Growth Plan workshops. There is still much we can do, and collectively we will. However, for one night, let's look at all we have done and give the community a well done. With that, Your Worship, certainly your staff is here. We'd be glad to answer any questions.
Great, thank you very much. Questions? Councillor Lemon?
Well, one of my favorites this year was putting the pavement down on the Harrison Park Drive-In. That was this year.
Don't steal my thunder for next year, Council.
Oh, sorry. Well, I'll put it this way. Not that we're supposed to talk about it, but boy, what an improvement.
Drive through the park at least weekly, and I can't believe how good it looks.
Others? No? Seeing none, thank you very much. I'm amazed as we go through our reports, we've always got that part in the report that refers to the strategic plan to keep us thinking about it, and clearly staff continues to think about it and chip away and go in the direction that we set out that we wanted to go with that. So it's certainly rewarding for all of us at this end of the table to see things going the way we wanted them to go when we did that strategic plan, and I'm sure staff feels the same way. Oh, you do want to say, okay. Oh, you're moving it, okay. So Councillor Gregg has moved receipt of the report. acceptance of the report, I guess, to be more specific, isn't it? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. 12B, report from Deputy Clerk with regard to public appointment, the Owen Sound DIA.
Thank you, Your Worship. Report tonight is regarding making a public appointment to the Owen Sound Downtown Improvement Area Board of Management. Near the end of May, the Board of Management received a resignation from one of its members and sought to replace that member. They have submitted the name Lois Taylor for Council's consideration, so tonight's recommendation is that appointment of Lois Taylor be approved by amending the board and committee bylaw.
Good. Thank you. Councillor Dodd?
Thank you, Your Worship. I think Lois Taylor would be a great asset to be added onto the Owen Sound DIA's board, so I'd be more than happy to move that recommendation.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Next, I've got a verbal or oral report from Deputy Mayor Wright with regard to Grey County Council.
No, I have no report tonight.
Nothing report? Okay, thank you. So that takes us to 13, which is the consent agenda.
Through your worship, on the consent agenda this evening are 3 reports from the Facilities Booking Coordinator, all respecting local events, including the Fall Fair, Fall Classic Slow Pitch Tournament, and the Owen Sound Men's Slow Pitch League Annual Playoff Tournament. There is a community flag flying request from Big Brothers and Big Sisters and minutes for receipt from the Grey Sauble Conservation Authority. Several businesses have received final approval, including Nuclear Equipment Supply Team at 2075 16th Avenue East, 2nd Avenue Gallery at 984 2nd Avenue East, and On Spot Apparel to operate a hawker and peddler business. Lastly, there is correspondence received, which is presented for the information of council. A full listing is available at 13G.
Thank you. Thank you. Moving those.
Moved by myself, Councillor Gregg. The City Council receives items 13A to 13G in the consent agenda dated August 13th, 2018, and further, that the recommendations contained in reports 13A to 13C be approved.
All in favor? That is carried. If we can go back up to 13E, there's a report from the Conservation Authority.
Thanks, Mayor Boddy. We had in May a review of the authority's wealth portfolio. There was some discussion on the direction and the investments that the Conservation Authority has and makes, and ensuring that what the Conservation Authority funds are being invested in is aligned with the goals and the vision of the Conservation Authority itself. So we then also delved more deeply into the strategic planning process, which I can update Council on, and Councillor Kepke will be aware of this. She was with the board when this was first started. It's a very organic strategic plan being driven by the CAO, Ms. Skinner, and incorporating the expertise of the staff that she's with, as opposed to going to an outside resource for for compiling the strategic plan. To this point, effective end of May, inputs has been received from board members and municipal CAOs within the authority. The goals include better monitoring and management of flood risks. The Conservation Authority will provide water management expertise to its partners, enhance land management and natural heritage preservation. They will work with and align partners and stakeholders on enhancements to Conservation Authority lands management and protection of natural heritage, core green areas and linkages. Support the development of watershed plans with municipalities. I'm not sure if that was Bill 73. Ms. Coulter would be able to correct me on that, but we had a lot of insight and information on that about 2 months ago for that current bill in front of municipalities. Improve water quality and strengthening environmental education and communication. Enhance and make education more available across the watershed and connect to demographics in a way that may personalize their being to the watershed and Grey Sauble's Conservation Authority's identity. There could be some increase in the operational expenses with these goals relevant to implementing, but I would note one particular goal of the strategic plan was recently supported by council, was a climate change grant, which will further fund an employee researching and developing the first goal, which was better monitoring and management of the flood risk. So that's already something that's been initiated. And we will soon see CAO, Ms. Skinner, coming to municipal councils and presenting the strategic plan in the near future. So we look forward to that, and I thank them for their work to this point. I think that's it, Your Worship.
Good, thank you. So we've already moved those things. Good, thank you. Any questions for Councillor Gregg? Seeing none. Number 14, committee, minutes of Accessibility Advisory Committee. Councillor McManaman, you've got those tonight?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. A short meeting last week to discuss 3 site plans. The first one has been discussed by council. It was the expansion of McLean Engineering, 15,000 square foot expansion of their building and an 8,600 square foot new detached storage building. The committee reviewed that, had some recommendations around their signage for accessible parking and also a sidewalk in front of the building to access those parking spots. Second was a site plan review of the Belfour Property Restoration Company. Again, council reviewed that last meeting. That's to construct a 7,600 square foot expansion of that building. And again, similar recommendations around accessible parking and also some lighting standards as well. The last one was a site plan review of the Salvation Army building, 365 14th Street West. Salvation Army is moving its food bank to that location, changing the configuration of the building and also the driveway. The committee, once again, had comments around accessible parking and a sidewalk to access that accessible parking. That's it, Your Worship. Those were the 3 site plans reviewed. I would move that we accept those minutes.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. 14B, report from City Hall Accommodation Ad Hoc Meeting. Councillor O'Leary?
Thank you, Your Worship. With the presentation from Kristen Schreider, I don't have anything to add. I'll just move approval of those minutes.
Okay, anyone got questions for Councillor O'Leary? Come on. Oh, thank you, Marion. Go ahead.
The only question I have, Your Worship, through you to the chair of the committee is an explanation, because people are asking, why didn't the City Hall move in with Grey County?
Did you, I was at that meeting. You were at that meeting. Go ahead.
Perhaps to help the councillor out, we certainly did look at that option along with the county, and I will say it was agreed that that wasn't an option. And I know certainly, I believe the mayor and the deputy mayor were there. We did look at it. It was not to be had. And I think I'll leave it at that.
On both sides.
That's correct.
Well, by the time we got there, they were 3 years ahead of us in their construction and about to build, and they couldn't wait for us to come up with design plans and pay for everything, and we hadn't even started to get there yet. Go ahead.
No, that's right. I want to ask Councillor O'Leary, as chair of the committee, when are we going to move in?
No, that's $1 million question. Right now, it's August 31st, and if that changes, we'll let you know. But right now, we're working on coordinating the move with other things that are going on. So it depends on delivery dates of some of the materials. I know one of the things we're waiting on are the stone ceilings that are coming from a local manufacturer that, you know, if we happen to get them a week earlier, it's going to make a difference in our moving date. If we don't, then it could be extended. So at this point, we're not quite sure, but we're sticking with August 31st as the completion date.
I think they're going to have to do a lot of cleaning up of the property before anybody will safely be able to go in and out of that building.
Actually, I think the landscaping, that was mentioned at the last conference call, that it's starting to be arranged with the landscapers coming in.
I'm not so concerned about landscaping as much as junk laying around. They're going to have to clean up.
Well, it still is very much a construction zone.
Yeah, it is.
It's only the 13th of August.
Yeah.
Lots of time.
Lots of time, yeah.
Others? Any other questions? You've moved those minutes. All in favor? That is carried. Corporate Services, 14C.
Thanks, Mayor Body. I'm going to just jump past the vacancy tax rebate and the audit report until I mention the items further on, and I'll come back to those. We had our monthly time management numbers looked at by the committee, and I'll note there was 4 fire calls in June, 15 for the year this far. Losses were $80,000 approximately for those 4 calls. We've had 116 hours of overtime to date, or 116 hours of overtime for June, now 387 hours for the year to date. We also had, and we get it and you see it in your package, but the data provides insight on false fire calls. And I will note that in June, there was 9 calls which were equipment fault, 7 accidental activation, 4 human perceived calls for emergency. And in May, I can go back a couple more months for information, there was 5 accidental activations, so similar to the month of June, which was 7. There was 5 equipment faults, June had 9, and again, there was 4 human perceived. April had 6 accidental activations, 7 equipment faults, and 1 human perceived. And March, 4 accidental activations, 13 equipment faults, and 2 human perceived. There was some discussion by the committee on getting a further report and what is, or is there a fine in place for false alarms for these calls? And we will be getting or we've requested a report in the future to get further information on practices in other municipalities. Our deputy fire chief had attended the meeting. He came from a municipality with a system where they did pass a fine at times for some of the fire calls if they were equipment failures and equipment's not being maintained up to standards or so forth. So we had that report received and that further subsequent motion on a further report to look at that. We had a report on the summary of awarded tenders and proposals for the first half of 2018. We also had a quarterly, our Q2 bylaw report, and I will note that we had 407 investigations initiated, 23 calls forwarded to animal control, 111 general inquiries, 11 civil matters, and of particular note to council, this spring we implemented a new yard maintenance bylaw. And in the past, the quickest cleanup under the property standards bylaw was 71 days. With the new yard maintenance bylaw, it has now taken an average of 44 days. We've had compliance gained out of 85 total investigations, 75 times compliance has been gained, 9 property cleanups, and 1 pending compliance. So that's been a new maintenance bylaw that I think obviously there's working quite well right off the bat. We had also a report which council will recall asking to delegate authority for parking enforcement officers to staff rather than the preparation of a report to council, which we routinely see when there's been staff departures. New hires come on and it takes time to get that report presented to council, and this is enabling staff to move forward very quickly. So we had that accepted. And I will now speak at further length on the vacancy tax rebate program before I pass off to Ms. Allen. And I think before I pass off to Ms. Allen for the audit presentation and questions pertaining to that, then I'll take questions on the vacancy tax rebate program first, if there is any. But we had an excellent presentation from Peter Fries of Municipal Tax Equity Consultants. This was a report that council had asked for at the 2018 budget deliberations. In 2001, the province introduced an application-based rebate program intended to offset a taxpayer's burden based on actual and real-time vacancies. Vacant land and excess land are separate subclasses for taxation purposes. The general criteria for eligibility is vacancy period must be 90 days or longer, building must be completely vacant, partial vacancies or industrial properties must be clearly delineated. For commercial properties, the claim space must represent a defined leasable unit. This program has and does represent an administrative burden to municipal staff in Owen Sound's case, in our financial services department. The province has given municipalities an opportunity to assume more responsibility and control over how and if the program will apply locally. Municipalities are now able to consider percentage reductions for vacant land and excess land subclasses, percentages used for vacant unit rebates, which currently we are 30% for the commercial and 35% for industrial. The administration policies and procedures therein, enhanced eligibility requirements, and the elimination of subclass discounts and/or vacant unit rebates. Recent shortfalls of the program have been declining assessed values secured through appeals, and then further reductions in the form of tax rebates have resulted in what's known as a double dip effect by the property owners. This was originally a program with an onus to prove eligibility on the applicant. However, in recent years, the onus has unfortunately shifted to municipalities to defend their position that the rebates would not apply to properties. And this has substantially furthermore increased the time and the drain on municipal staff. The impacts to Owen Sound: in 2017, we had 49 applications for rebates equaling $160,000, $90,000 from the commercial tax class. This is actually more than all of Simcoe County combined, excepting Barrie and Orillia. This $160,000, I would note, is also an unbudgeted amount, whereas the budget does include values on the vacant and excess land subclasses in a different way we're able to project, but we are not, I mean, the $160,000 is full-on unbudgeted, and then we have to, or I could be corrected by Ms. Allen on how that's.
Yeah, sorry, through your worship, that is actually a budgeted expense currently.
Okay, so we approximate that, and then we get corrected on
We
it.
estimate based on the previous years.
Yeah. Previously, lower tier municipalities had to have the upper tier determine the program. However, most recent years have seen some lower tiers now determining their own course. The province is letting this go. Over 80% of municipalities pursuing changes have chosen to abandon the program rather than reform it. The province has also, and I would note, chosen to abandon vacant unit rebate programs, as well as the vacant and excess land subclass treatments, which is obviously done through the education allotment on the taxes. And the committee had a motion from Councillor Kepke to not only receive the report, which was very good, and it was carried unanimously, to also have a further report detailing the steps to undertake in order for Owen Sound to submit an application for 2019 on the vacant tax rebate program. I would note 2018's deadline has already passed. So that is a pretty good review on the deputation from Peter Fries. We also then had our annual audit report, and I would defer to Ms. Allen for an overview on that, but perhaps doing so, is there any questions to this point?
Councillor McManaman?
Sorry, I'm not sure who the question may be, Ms. Allen. You said the 2018 deadline had passed. So does that mean the 2019 deadline for the 2020 budget?
That's correct. So it'd be an application in 2019 in order to have,
Great.
because the rebate is based on the previous year's taxes.
Great, thank you.
And I'll think if Ms. Allen wants to carry on with the audit report.
Certainly through your worship, BDO was present. Our local BDO office does our annual audit, and they have for many years now. They came to the meeting to present our draft financial statements. They presented them, they are a consolidated statement, so that includes the full operations of the library and the DIA combined with the city's operations. They provided an unqualified audit opinion, which is the highest level of assurance that the audit firm provides. And the information presented in those financial statements was consistent with the final year-end report that council and committee received in March or April, I believe, of this year. And those statements were accepted and recommend to be approved as well.
Thank you. Go ahead.
And at that point, I would move acceptance and approval of the minutes.
Good. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Number 15, matters postponed. We have none. Number 16 is motions for which notice was previously given. I understand, Councillor Lemon, you gave notice of motion July 23rd. Go ahead.
Yes, Your Worship, I did. At that time, there was a 10-cent difference between Owen Sound and Meaford. We were 10 cents more expensive per liter, or 44 cents a gallon, which to me is unconscionable. And I took a bit of a drive with my wife going towards Wasaga Beach, and in that whole area, we were by far the highest. And these prices are set by the gas companies. It's not the guy who at the pumps. They get a phone call, and they're told exactly what they're going to charge in Owen Sound. And to me, this is collusion. I really feel that the federal government should be stopping this practice of allowing the gas companies to flip and flop prices around in such a way as it's detrimental to one community over another. People coming in from Slavo Beach would look at our gas prices and be aghast and say, oh, well, you don't want to go to Owen Sound, it's too expensive. Things like that happen. So what I'm proposing is that we send a letter to our MP and our MPP asking for their help in making the oil companies explain publicly why their gas pricing can vary so much even between neighboring municipalities. And I would so move. I really feel that, it's got to be about 15, 17 years ago, we went through this before and we did this, and lo and behold, we weren't the highest priced gas in this part of Ontario after that. So I think it's worthwhile to benefit our ratepayers, and that is my motion.
Thank you. Further discussion? Councillor Kapke?
Thank you, Your Worship. I certainly agree in principle that there are varying gas prices in the area in our neighboring municipalities. I don't know why this is on. Sorry. Something about running out of steam, that's what it said. Anyways, traditionally, if people recall, if you went to Durham, or if you went to Stayner, or sometimes even Thornbury, gas prices were lower. It's always been that way. I don't think that we, as a municipal council, really have a mandate of managing gas prices that we're trying to manage, although I do agree that this is happening. Gas companies it's a private competitive market, just like grocery stores are private competitive. The consumer has the option of going to shop around to get what they need at a lower price elsewhere, but I don't feel that it's something that our council can control. So I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you. Councillor O'Leary?
Thank you, Your Worship. Usually Councillor Lemon and I are on the same page, but not tonight. I won't be supporting the motion. I did speak with Bill Walker over the weekend and talked about gas prices. One of the things he mentioned is Doug Ford campaigned to drop the gas prices by 10 cents a liter. One of the things that concerns me is you have to be careful what you wish for, because the 10 cents he's going to drop for gasoline is the money we get for our transit. So if we have him lowering gas prices on our behalf, it's going to come back to bite us in the end. And I'm not sure about the Meaford Way. I travel to Southampton, Port Elgin all the time. I'm in Tara. I'm through the Saugeen Reserve. I don't think I've seen it 10 cents different than Owen Sound, but quite often I do get gas when I'm over there. And it does irk me as much as it does you. Gas prices they're frustrating. But at the same time, I mean, I don't know if we can ask anyone to do anything about that. Like if you can buy groceries cheaper in Meaford than you can in Owen Sound, we can't ask Bill Walker and Larry Miller to find out why our groceries are so much in Owen Sound. If you go to buy a truck at Hellwright Chevaux and you can buy one $1,000 cheaper in Listowel, then you go to Listowel. We can't be in the business of telling people what they should be charging in their private businesses. So I won't be in favor of the motion.
Okay. Anyone else over there? Councillor McManaman?
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't know if I can add much to the two excellent comments that were just made by my fellow councillors. I'll be voting against the motion. Everybody's against higher gas prices. That's not the issue. The issue is I don't want to give the impression that somehow this council can do something about it, because we can't. It's not within our purview. Last week we had a discussion with the strike at the Family Health team. That's not in our purview either, and we, quite rightly, I feel, stayed out of it. We shouldn't be discussing, in the next few months, we're going to be discussing with the provincial government. I would anticipate they're going to be making some changes and cuts to the way they fund municipalities. That's just my crystal ball, and we're going to have lots of very serious discussions with our members of parliament about that and how it impacts the city. Those are things that are in our purview. This is not. I won't be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Councillor Gregg?
Just a little further to that, I traveled down to London last Thursday, and I would note that there's a brand new gas station had opened at the south end, which was at 122, and way undercutting anybody surrounding them, but they'd only been open for a week. I think it's actually something I've for years thought the west side was somewhat underserviced, and I think we should be quite optimistic that we do have a very positive development sitting right at 10th Street and 9th Avenue that puts another competitive force into the marketplace, and I'm all for, let private enterprise work its way and kind of to a large extent stay out. So I won't be supporting the motion either.
Thanks. Councillor Wright?
Thank you. I think Peter's right. I think that gas is too high here. You went to London, I gassed up in Godridge last Thursday for $1.21.6. All the gas stations in that area were at 121 or 122.6. That's a tourist area. And so it surprised me that gas was so cheap down there, and yet up here we're paying 10 cents more. But then it's all across, like Southampton, Port Elgin, right straight across now are all $1. I think it's down to about $1.30. I think what Peter's done is raise the issue whether it'll do any good or not. I don't think letters to the MP or MPP are going to do any good, Peter, quite frankly. I'm not sure you want to go ahead with your motion, but I do think the fact that you've made it a public issue may help to get the gas companies to say, well, maybe we should do something about this and lower our prices, because they are lower south of us. Up north in North Bay, they always say that north of that line, they give subsidies to those up there. Gas is cheaper up in North Bay and Orillia than it is here in Owen Sound. So why it's so expensive in Owen Sound, I have no idea, but it's too bad. But I thank Peter for raising the issue.
Councillor Dodd?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm not sure if anyone else uses the website gasbuddy.com. Basically, you can track what the gas prices are in any municipality, whether it's Owen Sound, whether it's Stratford, whether it's London, wherever it is. So I can tell you right now, from an hour ago, the gas in Owen Sound is $1.30.9. We can look for the City of London and tell you that the gas price was $1.35. We can look into Toronto and tell you that the gas price was $1.36. We can look into Godridge.
Yeah, look at there.
Godridge. It's $1.23. So I think there's a fluctuation across the board, and I think it depends. I don't think it really matters how close we are to Sarnia. London would be a perfect example. How close is it? So unfortunately, I completely agree with you too, Peter. Gas prices is another expense. It's another expense that is going into, the ratepayers have to deal with. But I can't support that motion, and I apologize.
Just before I go to Councillor Lemon to wrap up, Councillor Thomas, do you want to say?
Well, I can support the motion. We're not talking about mounting $1 million offensive here. We're talking about sending a letter. And I don't think there's anything wrong when something like this is picked up, whether it's our purview or not. I don't think there's anything wrong with standing up for the citizens of our community and saying there's something wrong here and somebody needs to take a look at it. So I will be supporting the motion.
Okay, Councillor Lemon, wrap up.
Well, I have a few points to make on some of the comments that were made. Number one, the City of Owen Sound pays the rack price in Toronto. That's what our gas contract's based on. So the prices going up and down in Owen Sound doesn't affect the city's budget, interestingly enough. Now, let's go back on this. Number one, I'm not asking for somebody to tell the gas companies exactly what to charge. I'm saying there should be equity, and this manipulation. I don't know whether any of you ever read about monopolies. Well, the gas companies are a form of monopoly. One phone call changes the price of gas in Owen Sound within 2 minutes. And those phone calls are made on a regular basis to our local service stations, setting the price. And why did they set it so high here? Well, it sure isn't the ability to pay. And we've got to think about our electors. And I'm sorry, I disagree with those people who, it does make a difference. It did last time. Denise Court was involved in that, if some of you may remember. And yeah, we got the prices so there was more equity. And now it's got a haywire again, and I want to do the same thing again. Nothing wrong with that. Take a risk. It's not, there's something wrong with the system when there's 10 cents a liter difference between two communities that are 25 miles apart.
I apologize, Peter, again. I'm only saying this because I can look at something and it's telling me from 1 hour ago that it was updated. I don't see anywhere with a 10-cent difference. And I'm not arguing with you. I'm just saying it's a 10 cents difference.
It was at one point.
At one point, sure. I can agree with you on that. But I'm just saying that's a big variable. That's where I'm struggling with you.
My point is simply, why these fluctuating all over the place changes? Let's just have an Ontario price. And all I'm saying is drawing their attention, because the gas companies, of course, the oil companies have a lot of political clout, provincially and federally, and maybe they should hear from an MP or MPP.
Councillor Lemon, I'm trying to remember. I think that was Mo Wright that moved that the last time, so that was about 1978.
No, it was after that.
So 1982?
I was on council at the time, so it was about 88, 89.
A little later, okay.
Because I believe I moved to that motion that time.
Thanks.
Do we have a recorded vote, please?
Thanks. Okay, it's a recorded vote. Anyone else wish to speak to it? Councillor Lemon started and finished. I'll call the question. Go ahead.
Councillor Dodd?
Opposed?
Councillor Gregg?
Opposed?
Councillor Kepke?
Opposed?
Councillor Lemon?
In favor.
Councillor McManaman?
Opposed.
Councillor O'Leary?
Opposed.
Councillor Thomas?
In favor.
Deputy Mayor Wright?
In favor.
Mayor Body?
Opposed.
The resolution is defeated with 6 votes opposed and 3 in favor.
Good, thank you. 16B, motion presented by Councillor O'Leary.
Thank you, Your Worship. The motion reads that city reinstates the 3 public parking spaces as regular on-street parking spaces in front of the Sydenham property after construction is completed.
Okay. Further discussion, further information. Who's going? Go ahead.
I just have a question. Is there a standard size for parking spots in the city? Because I was down there and I looked at that. I can't imagine how you're going to fit 3 spots in that little slice of property leading up to the bridge.
Through your worship, yes, there is. It's 6.5 meters. The proponent brought in their drawings. We revised them to be able to accommodate 3 spots. There will be minor changes. The concept itself stays the same. In terms of the layout, it's just a little longer, so it will accommodate 3 spots if this motion does pass, but...
Thank you. Someone else had their hand up. Councillor Gregg?
Yeah, I'm quite supportive of the addition of the on-street parking. My question was just, are we kind of a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction here, and we should be looking at a little bit more on 9th Street than just that particular 3 units, or 3 spots? Because there's that one spot in front of Tim Hortons where it just juts right out in the street and just consumes space for no real reason in front of a fire hydrant. But I just wonder if there's maybe something more that we should have a report and we look at that entire area from the bridge, just moving easterly to the Tim Hortons exit. Like, most people wonder what the heck that area of space that's being consumed was done for, and I'm just wondering if maybe there's a little bit more information that we can get or should get further to that.
Mr.
If
Ritchie?
I could, Your Worship, I think the reason for this one coming forward is that site plan is being finalized, so it's good to have that all in place. We will do final design of the rest of 9th Street along with the downtown riverfront precinct, so there'll certainly be lots of input at that time. So there is a difference between now and these 3 sites and the others.
So the other sites referred to, that option is still open? Is basically what you're saying?
We have a conceptual design at this time, but we would finalize everything in the final design phase.
Okay, good. Anyone else? Seeing none, going to call the question. All in favor? That is carried. So that gets us through all of 16. Discussion of additional business. Ms. Coulter, I think you're first.
Thank you, Worship. Just a reminder that movie night in Owen Sound starts this Thursday with the screening of Moana, and it's right here at the Bayshore Community Center outside on the waterfront, sponsored by the Hungry Hippo Daycare. Next Thursday, August 23rd, the Croods will play at Harrison Park, and then the final show will be Despicable Me 3 at Kelso Beach on August 30th. So family-friendly activities start at 7:30, and the movie starts just after sunset. So come on out, enjoy some free popcorn and a free movie.
Good, thank you. Councillor Kepke.
Thank you, Worship. I've been able to enjoy all but one of the Harbour Nights concerts this year, and great variety of music, great local talent, good turnout, and I wanted to thank the staff that worked on organizing all of that. Would have liked to heard a little more country, but that's just me. But it was really, really good music down there. And speaking of music, we've got Summerfolk coming up this weekend, and next weekend, Salmon Spectacular happens with more music yet. So thanks for that.
Cross those off my list. Go ahead, Councillor O'Leary.
Thank you, Worship. Congratulations to the Tom Hall Refrigeration North Stars Under-19 team for winning the 2018 Ontario Women's Field Lacrosse Provincial B Gold Medal. Also, congratulations to Bill and Jamie Simpson as the Owen Sound Selects have captured the Canadian Fastball Championships in Quebec. And finally, congratulations to Owen Sound North Stars novice reps who just last night actually won gold at the provincials in Whitby. Thanks to Troy Bontier, Jason Cranny, Jeff Flooney, Andrew Fry for putting the time in to help these kids along. They're just 9, 10-year-old kids, and that's a pretty big deal for them to win a championship. So thanks to all 3 teams for putting Owen Sound on the map.
And that novice team was B level as well, which is pretty amazing. Go ahead.
I understand there's a parade tomorrow night for them. Anybody know about that?
There is a celebration here in the Bayshore that is their awards night and celebration of championship teams for minor lacrosse. There will be a parade down, last year I think it started sort of in front of the Roxy and came down to Main Street and then down here. So a parade of all the kids. I think we've got a something Services meeting, I can't remember which one, that we won't be able to. And I think that was at 6 or 6:30 that parade was going through. It was fun last year, except it was raining. But yeah, all those teams have done very well. Thank you. Councillor Dodd.
Thank you, Worship. Just give everyone a little bit of information on the last skate jam, 5th annual skate jam that happened at the Kiwanis Skate and Bike Park on this past Saturday. If anyone doesn't know what the skate jam is, it's an activity and an event that's held annually by the Police Services Board. And it's really about getting youth who use, what are those things? Scooters, skateboards, bikes, all to get to the area, having a safe place to go and have fun. It's also was in partnership with Kiwanis. Fellow Kiwanian Jim McMenamin wasn't there, so I had to serve burgers for him. But it's a great day. It had about over 100 youth at the event. And the most important thing was that wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for the partnership that the City of Owen Sound had with the Kiwanis Club of Owen Sound. And President Don Sweetman issued the last check for the last final payment to pay that off. So it was a really exciting day. It was a really great day to see youth enjoying the skate park, and they had some of the youth actually doing rock concerts. So they were doing all their own music, their own bands. It was really neat to see. So I just wanted to let everyone know about that.
There was one child there that would be no more than 2 that had unbelievable speed balance on a scooter that scared the daylights out of me. It was great to receive the check. It was $20,000 was the last installment, a total of $100,000 that Kiwanis have paid for all of that equipment. And you're right, it seems to be used by kids year-round, and there's some pretty skilled kids up there that are obviously practicing. Thank you for that. That wipes out just about everything on my list. I just point out, Friday was August the 10th. 3 years ago on August the 10th, we had an arson persons running around, one was convicted, running around lighting buildings on fire. And still going back, and I mentioned this in social media and I left people out, the firefighters, their skills and their professionalism really got us through that morning. They saved buildings as they were going down the street with fire. I still remember a couple firemen being in an attic of a house that was smoldering, stopping the fire from inside, and what bravery. Ambulance services were there looking after people who were frightened and smoke, etc., and they did a great job. Social services, victim assistance, people that were helping out the arena when some of the people that were out of their houses went there. Works department putting up little things, barriers going up so that the runoff from the fire didn't go into the storm sewers and into the lake and contaminate it. Little things you don't think about. Neighboring firefighters, we had certainly, I believe Chatsworth was one, Inter Township was the other one, that were fighting fires at different places. And then, of course, we all remember after that hundreds of thousands of dollars being raised with the help of United Way and others. And that money has continued to help people. There's more money raised than used for that initial bit, and it continues to have been used very recently for a fire victim. So it's ended up being a legacy, and I still think it was one heck of a statement about our community coming together and how the community did come together after that. So that's 3 years ago. So I was thinking about that on Friday. I attended the 156th Annual Emancipation Festival. They rededicated the cairn, or Councillor Lemon had a lot to do with promoting at the time. It's 10 years later, correct? 2014, it was 2004?
Yeah, we had a committee of council, and it was at that time, it was a giant leap of faith, and I'll be honest with you, Mr. Mayor, when we unveiled it, I never realized how much recognition it would get for Owen Sound, because it was later that year I received a phone call from England asking permission to put it on the House of Commons website in London, because they were doing a thing about emancipation, and our quilt patterns that were done by Jim Hong Louis were featured because nobody else had done anything about that. But it's just a wonderful thing, and the number of people who go to the cairn each year. The other thing, the Karen was, what I said to Craig Curtis when he was city manager, nobody's ever going to read all those plaques. And guess what? I found out with the Black History Karen that families will stop for an hour. The kids will get down on their hands and knees and feel it's a wonderful, wonderful.
Help me with one more thing. There is a museum in Clarksburg called Sheffield Museum, which I wasn't aware of before.
Yes.
That is to Black heritage in this area, and there was a stone presented to them, and that was the first time that I knew it was there. So that.
And also, Your Worship, there was a letter which was actually addressed to the city of Owen Sound. It would be nice to get an original of that to put in our city hall.
And that was from the Governor of Maryland?
No, the Governor of Maryland. I'll check and I'll get back to you.
Good, thank you. So in attendance was Senator Wanda Thomas Barnard. She's from Halifax, first tenured black female professor at Dalhousie. She has a history of human rights and women's issue work in the East Coast and was appointed to the Senate. I'm not sure exactly what the phrase is, but became a senator in 2016. She had somebody working for her, and I forgot to write down the name, who was originally from Owen Sound, and said, have you ever heard of the Emancipation Picnic? She hadn't. She came, was very impressed. She plans to go back to the Senate this fall and start to work on having August 1st recognized nationally as Emancipation Day. The province of Ontario did it several years ago. The federal government has yet to do it. Bill Walker was very much in support on Friday night. Larry Miller was very much in support and will do what he can when he was there Saturday morning to discuss it. I pledged our support at some point when the time comes right that we can support that, which I think is very important given our history, given that Emancipation Festival that's gone on for so long and is so important to the families that return. It's a pretty amazing weekend. You covered off Summerfolk, you covered off Fish Derby. Most of us are off to the AMO conference in Ottawa starting this Sunday. We have delegations with the Minister of Labour to continue to, or try with a new Minister of Labour to discuss the arbitration system. We have support from Mayor Henderson of Brockville that will attend with us. I will attend with theirs. They've got a delegation to try and hit the same points with the Labour and try and show that it's not just, we're not one at a time, that we're working together on this. We have a delegation for policing with the Minister of
Correctional Services.
Correctional Services with regard to court security costs. I better not say too much more than that. There's been some things that have increased our costs that shouldn't be our costs that that have been fixed. The county is going, I know they're turned down on health with regard to long-term care, but they're going to speak to the Minister of Education with regard to getting provincial support for the partnership between the county, Georgian College, the two boards of education to try and purchase Sydenham School and get that going as a skills training center and entrepreneurial center. I think that's all the information that I have. So we're back to number 18, Committee of the Whole.
Moved by Councillor Gregg that the Committee of the Whole rise and report.
All in favor? That is carried. It's back into formal procedure, number 19.
Moved by myself, Councillor Gregg, seconded by Councillor Kepke, that the action taken in Committee of the Whole in considering public meetings, deputations and presentations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports of city staff, consent agenda, committee minutes, matters postponed, motions for which notice was previously given, and additional business be confirmed by this council.
All in favor? And that is carried. Any new notices of motion? Seeing none. Bylaws, Brianna?
Through your worship, the bylaws listed for approval on tonight's agenda include the confirmatory bylaw, a bylaw to amend the traffic bylaw for the prohibition of parking on some parts of First Ave East and First Street East, Bylaw to amend the board and committee bylaw to appoint a public member to the Owen Sound DIA board. Bylaw to execute a site plan agreement with the Blue Water District School Board for the Owen Sound District Secondary School. A bylaw to amend various bylaws to delegate authority for the appointment of special and city parking enforcement officers. A bylaw to enact a utility collection and billing policy. A bylaw to enact a tax billing and collection policy. And a bylaw to execute a facility use agreement with Ben Kirkconnell and Steve Brown for the men's slow pitch playoff tournament.
Good, thank you.
Moved by myself, Counselor Gregg, seconded by Counselor O'Leary, that bylaw numbers 2018-120, 121, 122, 123, 124, 125, 126, and 2018-127 be passed and enacted.
And all in favor? And that is carried, so that completes our business for the night. It is now 9:04. Thank you, everybody.